Fashion begins where necessity ends. Clothing originally responded to the most basic human needs: protection from the cold, coverage against the elements, and comfort. The quality of a garment mattered only insofar it maintained the body's health and well-being. Too little coverage from the cold, too much in the heat, these were matters of survival. But once those fundamental needs were met, clothing became more than functional. It became a medium through which society could assert order, cultural meaning could be encoded, and individuals could express identity. The origin of tailored clothing traces back to the protective metal armor worn in medieval Europe. This is the first moment where tailoring emerged, the act of shaping fabric to a unique form rather than merely draping it. In this way, the tailor was the first creator in fashion's history, an artisan whose work translated the human body into pattern and structure. Clothing began to move from pure necessity into design, laying the technical foundations for later forms of authorship. Yet, clothing wasn't just about the bodies, it was also about social regulation. In the late medieval and Renaissance periods, rulers across Europe introduced sumptuary laws to control what people could wear. Fabrics, colors, and styles became restricted according to class, profession, and even morality. Dress was now a vehicle for power, hierarchy, and law. Clothing became a system of visible codes. What one wore communicated social, moral, and political position. The act of dressing thus moved beyond survival and entered the domain of social meaning, with rules dictating what could and could not be worn. The Renaissance added a new layer to this evolution: the rise of the individual, the awareness of selfhood, taste, and personal expression. It shifted clothing from purely collective and functional purposes towards personal identity. Garments began to express personality, intellect, and social aspiration, balancing the dictates of morality and law with personal taste and desire. In this way, the technical, the social, and the psychological dimensions of dress became intertwined, creating the first complex terrain of what we would eventually call fashion. But by the 19th century, this evolution culminated in a new form of authorship: les couturiers. Figures like 𝘧𝘢𝘴𝘩𝘪𝘰𝑯 transformed dressmaking into a recognized form of creative authorship. Garments were signed, attributed to a single name, and their cultural authority rested on that signature rather than on the collective labor that produced them. La haute couture highlighted the tension between visible authorship and invisible labor. The designer's name adorned the dress, while les petites mains, the countless hands who labored to construct it, remained hidden. Fashion now had a dual anatomy: the conceptual idea of the creator and the technical execution of the maker. Finally, fashion's meaning expanded further with the rise of print culture and industrialization. According to Roland Barthes, before fashion was theorized, the only existing language was the magazine. These publications transformed garments into signs, producing a semiological system in which the text describing clothing often carried more weight than the objects themselves. Fashion became a discourse, a network of meanings, and a system of signs that expanded beyond the body or the atelier. In the last 100 years, the pace of social change accelerated dramatically. Industrialization, urbanization, global communication, and the emergence of mass culture created a society in constant flux. Designers inheriting the legacy of les couturiers were now tasked with responding to these rapid transformations. Silhouettes and forms were no longer solely about craft or luxury. They became signifiers of social change, reflecting shifts in culture, values, and daily life. The modern fashion designer emerged as a sort of cultural interpreter. Their work translates the zeitgeist into clothing, turning societal currents, technological advances, and cultural movements into silhouettes, materials, and collections. Where the tailor shaped the body and les couturiers shaped desire, the designer turns society's shifts into new silhouettes. So fashion, the way of dressing, evolves with history. When something becomes out of fashion or démodé, it is because that way of dressing reflected a society, a lifestyle, a mindset, and a system of meaning that no longer corresponds to the current social reality. What once was expressive, relevant, or aspirational has passed. The garments remain, but the world it once described has changed.